All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Coach Torn Hargrave. So, just got this comment from somebody who's been dealing with some very severe brain fog, depersonalization, realization, and it happened during COVID. And they thought that they were at least headed towards full recovery, and then the symptoms came back, and now they're kind of worse than ever, and they're really just losing hope, and they need some encouragement. So, I'm going to be reading this, and also, typically I would say, send your stories to stories@coachtornhargrave.com. But something just hit me. Just comment it below. Save you some time having to pull up your email, and I can just respond to the comment. So share your story if you want me to respond to it on YouTube. Click like, help me get this out into the algorithm, and let's get this thing rolling. So he says, I'm a 22-year-old male to start, and I've been dealing with intense brain fog, feelings of being detached, unable to process things, constant loneliness, and grief of loss of my prior self. Struggling to find a reason behind why I feel like this. Okay. Yeah. I mean, whenever you're starting to experience depersonalization, realization, and all the associated symptoms that come from the freeze response, which is what produces DPDR, you do feel like you lost yourself. And it's very, very depressing because you start to think about whenever you used to be able to just be in the moment, whenever you used to be able to experience your emotions, even bad emotions, because in deep states of DPDR, you might go emotionally numb where you don't feel any emotion. And it's like, I know typically we think about positive emotions as being the only good emotions, but it's actually the negative emotions that give the positive emotions meaning, because you're able to contrast that with negative emotion and you start to feel unhuman. I mean, experiencing negative emotion is part of being human. And after you come out of numbness, you actually start to appreciate even negative emotion because it just feels so unhuman to be numb. But regardless, you may sit and find yourself thinking back to how life was before symptoms and almost kind of like fantasizing about that. Like, man, I wish I could go back to how it was. And it just feels like you're kind of stuck in this chasm that you can't escape, because the part of your brain that would allow you to see an end to your suffering is temporarily offline. That's also what makes these symptoms so hellish to deal with, is they feel permanent. And so just want to relate with that. I understand. I went through this myself. So you said struggling to find a reason behind why I feel like this. So you actually give a lot of context, which to me explains exactly why you would be dealing with these symptoms. You've got a very painful history. So when I was 17, it was my senior year, and it was also COVID year. Yeah, COVID was very rough because we didn't really know how bad it was. And although, of course, it was very severe, I mean, so many people passed away from this, but we definitely thought it was much worse than it ended up actually being. And so many people got very severe health anxiety, and it exacerbated existing mental health issues. Like, my clients doubled during COVID, especially, the lockdowns. I had some clients that couldn't leave their house or barely could leave their house for like a year because of the lockdowns. And it just made it to where people couldn't go to the gym and they couldn't have much social connection. And even if you didn't have previous mental health issues, COVID created new mental health issues. It was just such a hard time, and I'm so glad that we're through that. With that being said, so I was doing online school. I'd like to mention I graduated with academic honors and took AP classes and was excited to go to college. Anyways, around the start of my senior year, I'd been making some really dumb decisions like binge drinking and abusing Xanax, weed, and other substances. Not really in an addict way, but for months on end. Um, oh, sorry, not in an addict way for months on end, but for spurts of a week or two of decently heavy consumption. Anyways, during one of these weeks, I ended up getting COVID for the first time, I think. So let's just look at that alone. I mean, number one, you have the pressures of school. Okay. I work with a lot of college kids who just have so much pressure to get their tests done. They're also trying to take advantage of, kind of being younger and wanting to enjoy kind of college life, and trying to balance that. So they end up neglecting sleep and nutrition and hydration. They don't have a lot of boundaries, and they're just very, very stressed. And then you couple that with binge drinking, which is very, very hard on the body, and especially leads to dehydration, which leads to fatigue, which is actually what causes fight, flight, freeze is fatigue in the body. And then, of course, depending on your individual reaction to the Xanax or the weed, a lot of people have a very, very stressful response to that. It kind of makes them feel trapped and overwhelmed. I would say about 30% of my clients that work with me, it was a bad drug experience that kind of set their nervous system off into DPDR. I never got tested, but I got really sick, and a girl I was hanging out with tested positive for it, so I can only conclude that that's what it was. Yeah, for sure. It sounds like that's probably what it was. I had COVID like 3 different times, and that was the worst sickness that I've ever had in my entire life. The fatigue was unlike anything that I've ever experienced. I ended up deciding to stop doing the drugs one day and go home and just focus on school and stuff, but I felt extremely off that morning, I remember. Everything felt surreal, and I felt just super detached and cognitively numb. Everything felt hard to do. Then after a week, I realized it wasn't going to go away. I then spent the next 3 years dealing with this and not seeking help due to extreme anxiety about having to talk about drug usage and fear that I had brain damage. Absolutely. So, whenever it comes to health anxiety, and that includes mental health anxiety, there's kind of two responses. One is you go to the doctor all the time, or maybe you go to your therapist all the time, or go to multiple therapists, right? But there's also another reaction, which is that you avoid the doctor, you avoid a licensed mental professional because you're afraid that they're going to diagnose you with some incurable disease or some very severe mental health issue like psychosis or schizophrenia, things like that. And so it looks like that coupled with just not wanting to really disclose that you had been kind of experimenting with drugs, which makes sense, right? You kind of felt, uncomfortable talking about that. That kind of kept you from pursuing help. So you said eventually I got back to like maybe 75% of my prior self, was starting to feel pretty good again, but then it all came back, but even worse about a year ago, right back to how I felt at the beginning, but even worse. I remember recognizing this strange feeling that's associated with how I feel, like not being able to focus my eyes or mind on anything. So I kept just suffering until about 5 months ago, and it got even worse again, and I decided to seek help. Okay, so that's definitely a positive that you're seeking help, but I just want to pause and say, I mean, there's been a lot of buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion, and fatigue in your body for a very, very long time that hasn't been addressed. And so I'm interested to see, what kind of help that you get, for sure. So let's keep reading. Honestly, the last 5 months have been so unbearably cruel and effing bad. I'll filter the cuss word, but I understand. Just awful. I've been to a neurologist, had an MRI, a CT scan, loads of blood work, an EEG, a sleep study, tried Lexapro for 2 months, and nothing has helped or gave any indication of what's happening to me at all. And I'm just really, really scared. I have a neuropsych next month. Anyway, my days now all seem to blend together, and I feel 24/7. Let's just say really bad, just to filter it. Like I can't think at all. Blank-minded, can't hardly have a conversation because I'm so overwhelmed by the information. Can't enjoy anything that I could use to cope with this. Games are too hard and stressing to my mind, so we can't even enjoy video games. I can't enjoy music because I can't process it and enjoy it like I used to. Can't watch YouTube shows or movies for the same reason. Work feels like torture, even though I lost my old job and now work at a crappy fast food job. I feel like the dumbest person in the store, and having to work through the overwhelm is debilitating and agonizing. All of this while seemingly nobody around me seems concerned or worried. I feel invisible because I'm wondering if this could really be psychological, really all in my head and no physical issues. So he's basically saying, how could all of this be happening and there be no sort of, disease or physical issue as far as from a medical perspective? I'm desperate for any help. I don't want to die at all, but I already feel dead. At least who I used to be is dead. I'm close to nothing now. So this is so hard to go through. I mean, not only did I go through these symptoms, but I've spent the last 8 years working with people from around the world going through these symptoms. And it's part of a trauma response. And trauma is really preparation to be eaten by a lion. So whenever you feel depersonalized, you realize time feels distorted, emotional numbness, this is literally your body preparing to be eaten by a lion. Now, obviously, especially we have all these tests done to prove that you're safe. There's nothing medically going wrong. You're obviously not in any physical danger, but your nervous system is convinced that you're about to be eaten by a lion, and it's because you've had a very painful history. And what I would tell you is the missing piece is the body. Okay. See, I understand you're thinking, this could be psychological. And, you hear things like mental health, but honestly, it's really more about physical health. Okay. In the sense of what's causing your symptoms is that your body is constantly going into fight, flight, freeze response. Yes, there are impacts on the mind. We can't concentrate. We can't think. We have anxious thoughts, things like that. But what's really happening is you're experiencing sensory data that is similar to painful things from your past. These are known as sensory triggers, and it's putting your body into a state of survival, which is fight, flight, freeze. And you're simply experiencing all the appropriate symptoms for fight, flight, freeze response. And so what we really need to do is we need to get your body out of fight, flight, freeze response. I see what the doctor said as a blessing. Okay, we've done all these tests and there's nothing medically wrong. And so now we know that we're dealing with natural trauma in the body due to natural causes, which is a good thing in the sense of we're not dealing with a disease or something like that or a neurological issue, according to the doctor. So with that being said, I want you to follow this channel. I also want you to check out the 5 Shifts Masterclass. There's a link in the first pinned comment as well as the description of this video. It's going to show you the 5 shifts that you need to make in order to get your body out of this response. Whether you work with me or whoever, I want you to get better. And I will tell you that there is nothing but hope for you, okay? Especially with all those tests coming back clear. I mean, your body has an innate capacity to heal itself. But we need to do things that are specific to showing your body and nervous system that you're safe. That's how we get you out of fight, flight, freeze response. And that's what the 5 Shifts Masterclass will show, as well as this channel. I talk about the things all the time. We need to release the tension, adrenaline, emotion from the body. We need to make lifestyle adjustments to make sure that you're listening to your body, not pushing your body too hard. You also need the right information to detach fear and shame from symptoms. We need to face your triggers. That's another thing that conveys safety to the nervous system. And then, of course, co-regulation, which studies have shown is up to 45% of what calms the nervous system. This is working with somebody that builds hope in you, builds a secure attachment relationship, and helps guide you through the process of rewiring your body and nervous system. Okay, those are the things that you need to focus on. There is a light at the end of this tunnel, but we have to do things that are going to convey safety to the body and nervous system, not random positive activities, not a bunch of acceptance, distraction techniques, mind-based things, because this is a body issue. Even though there's not some sort of disease in the body, this is still a body issue in the sense of your body is a war zone, and that's why these symptoms are kicking in to dissociate or separate you. It's to protect you because your body is so overwhelming to be in right now, okay? And so we don't want to focus on the symptoms or apples on an apple tree. We want to change the state of the body, and that's what those things that I just talked about are all designed to do, is convey safety to the body, all right? So I hope that encouraged you. If anybody else wants to share their story, comment below on this video, or really any of my videos, and I would love to give you some encouragement, okay? That is it. Smash the like if this helped you, and I will see you in the next video.